I'm Ilkay Altuntaş. I'm the Chief Data Science Officer at the San Diego Supercomputer Center at UC San Diego. I'm also a founding co-director of the ProWESS Center. The Wildfire Science and Technology Commons is launched under. ProWESS is a partnership between UC San Diego and Los Alamos National Lab. And we are very solution-oriented in the ProWESS Center and would love to work with all of you. Again, welcome to the launch of this bold new initiative. We hope this initiative will accelerate technological progress and innovations for wildland fire management and mitigation with the best of science and technology. And if you're here, you already are aware, I think we are all aware, that we have a growing mega fire threat. 2023 was the warmest year, according to NASA, on top of having past 10 consecutive years, the warmest 10 on record. And according to a report by the National Interagency Fire Center, in 2023 alone, 56,000 fires happened, burning over 2,600,000 acres. So this is definitely not something that we are all noticing just recently. And over the last 2 decades, there's been a lot of activity and awareness growing in this area. And over the last couple of years, a Wildland Fire Commission was pulled together, and they created a report with some recommendations last year. And Chapter 6 of this report is dedicated to integrating modern science and technology with some recommendations under it into the wildland fire solution space. So there are good recommendations on the report, and we think what we are doing is in response to these recommendations of the report, along with many other experiences and conversations we had over the years with our community of wildland fire management. So what happened also over the last decade is a new industry growing, coined with the name firetech. And Wonderlabs does a great report of the state of firetech annually. And in the 2023 report, we noticed that there's a lot going on in this space in mitigation and risk, and response and detection, and also adaptation. So these are all good directions I think our community is moving towards. And what the report says is broad and overlapping stages exist in developing this technology, firetech in general. There's research and development, proving the science and testing the methodologies across contexts the firetech exists in. There's work needed on pilots and operationalization. So both in terms of demonstrating applications, but also showing improvements into the resilience in this landscape. And then partnerships are needed to achieve scale across the landscape. So firetech industry is a growing area, but there are some bottlenecks in general in firetech that we recognized with our work with the communities. One, we lack standards and also widespread collaborative practices to be able to accelerate these innovations into solutions, and also accelerate solutions in ways that we can scale and sustain them. Data and models that are happening at a fast pace, and access to these data and models are slow compared to this fast pace of change in science and technology, and especially as it relates to data. And there are hardships around evaluating new science and technology integrated solutions, or science and technology itself in the first place, towards creating solutions for communities. We'd like to think what we are launching today here is exactly in this in response to these different bottlenecks and challenges. So our question is, how can we better utilize data and science to advance and accelerate firetech towards solutions? So definitely we can have firetech with existing science, but as science and data technologies like AI and other data management solutions are happening at a fast pace, what would be a better and more accelerated way to integrate those changes to advance firetech solutions and build a collective approach to scale and sustain them? So our intent here in response to this question is to create an enabling platform called FireForge platform and a community of practice around that platform so we can accelerate innovation, foster open science, promote transparency, enable collaboration, prepare for scale, and forge coalitions to sustain the scale of these operations. And the Wildfire Science and Technology Commons is funded by the National Institute of Standards and Technology under support by a congressional appropriation thanks to Senator Padilla and Representatives Vargas and Jacobs. And we are very grateful for their support. So we hope together we can protect lives and property and ecosystems from the ever-growing threat of wildfires. This is a big statement, of course. One person, one institution, one organization, one agency cannot do it alone. So we need to stay collaborative and bring together and support a collaborative community of practice so we can break down the barriers, both culturally and technically, that currently exist between wild and fire data models and tools. And in the future, we can create a seamless and smart platform together to enable collaborations for firetech solutions. And hopefully together, we can revolutionize how we understand, respond to, and prevent wildfires. So how are we going to do this? What's our approach? We are going to do 3 things under this project, at least this phase 1 that we are launching today. Today, thanks to your participation, we are taking a big step towards launching the Wildfire Commons as a community of practice. We'd like to work with all of you and all of your collaborators. We'd like to build a marketplace, a commons community marketplace around data, models, and tools, and in general, things that can provide building blocks towards solutions. And we'd also like to build a platform called FireForge that can provide the cloud-compatible sandbox for things in the marketplace to be prototyped and explored into innovations and solutions. So building the community of practice starts by engaging our community, both in science, technology, and solution space, and really bringing that grounding from the experience of practitioners into an understanding that becomes the basis for firetech. And the Wildfire Commons framework, which is our platform that we can share data, models, and tools, will be developed so that we can drive that next generation fire science and operational practice towards a scalable platform that could be replicated and operationalized in different contexts. And in addition to these, we'd like to create a case study for vegetation and fuel that demonstrates the impact through an approach that brings open data and tools and a community together, enabling multiple use cases and multiple problem spaces. And we also invite you to create your own Pathfinder projects that becomes the requirements for future directions of this type of work, and create communities yourself around the marketplace and the commons. And as a part of this phase 1, we'd like to also work with members of our community to create a blueprint for achievable, scalable, and sustained use of a commons platform for collective impact. So what can we do in the future to sustain and scale the commons as a multiplier for all your efforts? So who is the Wildfire Commons community of practice, and what's the approach here? So in its full scope, our goal here is to create national scale partnerships and collaborations around wildland fire, and to create solutions that could involve organizations like local, state, federal, tribal governments, educating and training organizations, nonprofit and philanthropic organizations, or firetech incubators. So we'd like to enable solutions scaled and sustained by many in the space as partnerships. These solutions will require innovations to be built. And when we look at the landscape of innovations, they exist in land and fire management agencies, research agencies, research and industry innovators and incubators for innovation in these spaces. And typically, these innovations need infrastructure, especially if they involve models and data and any forms of AIs to be integrated into it. So the infrastructure in terms of data, computing, networking, but also infrastructure to bring scientists and researchers and technologists together so they can collaborate through and prototype things to explore and maybe scale into solutions and innovations that can sustain into the future. And all of these starts by building blocks. And we are all a building block ourselves in the first place, our expertise, but also there are building blocks very specifically in data and fire simulation models, and for instance, AI-based models and approaches. And a lot of these sit in the open data, open science space. Can we actually embrace those and make sure we can sustain those open things as building blocks while we actually show how they could be used to run infrastructure in innovations into solutions? So our approach and practice towards these solutions is building that marketplace of building blocks integrated into a cloud-compatible FireForge platform that can be turned into innovations by an open community of innovators, and then collectively working across sectors, agencies, disciplines, turning those into solutions that can scale and sustain into the future. So this is our wish, that we can create a practical community around solutions and use everything we have in our hands and create really an approach that scale, sustain, and back into innovation space. So what's the marketplace? In its basis, it's a place that we list data and models and tools and create innovations through those in an interoperable, accessible, and effective commons fashion. So putting all the ingredients together, but also creating associated best practices so we can actually take those research workflows into practical spaces through those best practices. So this is not just technical. This could be legal frameworks. This could be licensing and data agreements. And this could be things like badging and tagging standards. So we can generate criteria for building blocks and the innovations to be evaluated effectively by the communities who can use them. Open doesn't mean everything goes. These data agreements, access controls, and the FireForge integration, I think we can do it very carefully. So we actually enable best practices and use of open things under agreements and governance protocols that we can collectively generate. And then building it in a way that can integrate into external platforms so that there's a graduation from this platform into things that can live in their own world and enterprise domains is what we like marketplace to achieve at its full scope. And Marketplace will be built on top of a platform called FireForge. FireForge will collect data, models, and tools with tagging and standardized vocabularies. So they're available for discovery and exploration, along with some descriptions of how and when to use things. So some constraints around the rules and governance of things that are cataloged in the marketplace. And we will enable workspaces for collaborative community innovation and development. So these workspaces will enable work of teams on a cloud-compatible exploration and prototyping environment, which will be our sandbox for the FireForge. Of all of these, of course, anyone will be able to work outside of the sandbox through APIs, the data and models and tools as services or APIs that can make what we catalog programmatically available through the original sources of these data model and tool based on the agreements they provide. In addition to these, as I mentioned, we'll develop a case study for researchers and technologies to work around 3D fuel and fire modeling. And the FireForge platform, this example will be enabled on the FireForge platform to show how the case study can enable various use cases in operational fire management tools or immersive environments that actually communicate fuel and fire models to different communities. And we hope more use cases for this case study will be provided by our community members in impactful applications. In addition to the case study, we'd like to collect pathfinders, and we'd be really happy if you opt in to showcase and multiply your existing efforts that leverage open data and open science so they can provide examples for wildland fire solutions, but also they can be requirements towards the commons in the upcoming phases of the commons. Of course, like any good framework, there's an architecture with the FireForge and the marketplace and the community of practice. And we are hoping shared metadata, badging criteria, and standard vocabulary will be bridging these different components together. And if you go to this QR code, you'll be able to see 3 ways or 3 paths to participate, actually 4 with your membership involving. One will be on collective impact. So at the end of some phases of this, we'd like to create a backbone organization for collective impact in this space that would be managed by the community and that would support open science, open data. We also would like to, as I mentioned, collect use-inspired translational pathfinders for the commons from all of you. There are ways to nominate those. And we would love your participation in landscape and fuel management case study that I mentioned. That's our timeline here. You're here at the launch in October 2024. We were just able to launch through some news releases and some meetings with some of you, and also this informational webinar. Throughout November, we'd like to collect working group nominations. And in December, we'll have a nomination process for pathfinders and case study participation. And in January, we'd like to kick off the working groups. So, of course, many activities will take place across this timeline, but the main case study workshop will be held in May 2025 with the case study participants and maybe some of our collaborators in the solution space in fire management and land management. In July, we will launch the FireForge platform prototype. So you'll be able to share data sets, models, and tools. In October, after a year of working with the working groups, we'd like to actually generate some reports for the working groups and the progress there. And in December 2025, to end our first year, we'd like to launch the marketplace based on recommendations by the working groups and interviews by our community members, with our community members. We have a 3-year timeline in this first phase. And at the end of the first phase, we'd like to be in a shape that collectively we can launch a phase 2 transition and see how we can move this community into a more collective impact domain. So what are the working groups? I mentioned the working groups. We are starting with 4 initial working groups. And there will be also in the second years a nomination process for new working groups. So we'll like to create a way for our community to actually create working groups and work in independent settings. And working groups we envision will be 10 to 15 members through a nomination and invitation process. Nominations are open in the QR code and at the website that I mentioned before. The first working group is on opportunity assessment. So we'd like to draw a senior group in this domain with experience to create some priorities for us in the firetech space that can be solved through new modes of science and technology, and identify the innovation gaps in those priority areas, so we can evaluate the state of the possible through science and technology. And also, we'd like to create blueprints for these innovations in the future. And we'd like to really collaborate with those of you who work in the space to create those firetech blueprints or science and technology blueprints as it relates to wildland fire. The output of this, or outcome of this opportunity assessment group, will be strategic guidance reports for the community and also annual blueprints for firetech innovations. So that should also be matched with, of course, something like a standards effort and a marketplace working groups. So there are some overlaps between the working groups, and we hope to actually create spaces for working groups to work across the working groups at times through workshops, online workshops, and working sessions. So the standards working group will define and implement a standard vocabulary and will provide hands-on support and expertise by data experts to guide the work of the working group. We'd like to facilitate discovery and integration approaches for the building blocks, so we can actually tag things to make them fit programmatically, be integratable with each other. And we'd like to also create pathways for how we can evolve the vocabulary and the approach into the future. And on a regular basis with versions, we'll publish these vocabularies to improve discoverability of materials and everything that's shared through the Commons. Marketplace similarly will use these standards and establish recognition criteria and badges for effective evaluation of firetech and other related materials. Here we are targeting that one hardship that makes it really hard to evaluate new science and technology. So we'd like to enable through this the community to assess the quality and relevance of different science and technology for use, and encourage participation and engagement in a way that we can promote best practices. So we hope this working group will come up with a comprehensive criteria and document those for a badging system and help us evaluate the marketplace and its effectivity into the future. And the last working group we are launching today is the Scale and Sustain working group. And the goal here is, again, to create, in the end, a collective impact organization that can help us have the pathways between the commons and the policy and practice ecosystem. Assessing those opportunities and also innovations for expansion of the framework, and exploring ways that we can scale and sustain this impact in terms of partnerships, collaborations, or other business models that we can actually work around open things. So this is a lofty goal, but we are hoping by creating a discussion and collaboration environment, we can really come up with collective impact strategies and maintain, scale, adapt innovations and solutions around open things, open data, open science, so that we can also sustain those open innovations as a community. When I say community, I really would like to also talk a little bit about the principles we would like to build this community around. Collaboration is key. Collaboration, not competition, in a way that we can support standards, commonalities, and practices. We can sustain open data and open science. And while doing that, we'll always defend data sovereignty and ethical conduct through all community practices. So awareness to those, as we talk about openness, will be in the heart of our practices. There's some code of conduct we developed in our website that's a little bit more extensive than the principles I shared today. So we'd like to really take a moment, if you could take a moment and review those code of conduct practices, it would be really helpful for us as a collective. And my question to you after this, I hope this resonated with all of you, and we can work with you, partner with you. There are lots of efforts in this space, and our mission is to foster those efforts into community-driven collaboration and transparency areas, and combine our strengths and expertise to create a safer, more resilient future. You are definitely welcome to showcase your work in the marketplace, or prepare as we launch that marketplace over the next year to showcase your work with us. Create a Pathfinder project, or at the minimum, become a member, follow our activities, maybe participate in the case study, and please nominate yourself or others for the working groups, so we can find a way to work together formally. And we have a great team here. I think our team is also online here. Melissa Floka is our community of practice lead and a partnerships director. Claire Sturm, that you heard throughout this process, is our project manager and engagement lead. Katie O'Laughlin is our lead developer. Dan Kroll is responsible from the operations of our systems, and Kate Kaya and Jenny Lee are our user experience and web developers that will help us build the platform, FireForge platform, and the website that supports the marketplace and our community collaborations around those. So in the near future, at least, you'll hear from us monthly connections with updates on community and project opportunities. We are excited for you to participate in working groups to define the future of the Commons. And we also, working with some of you, would like to provide early access to the FireForge platform as we launch it, and enable you to integrate your data models and tools into FireForge. Thank you. This is what we wanted to share today, and there's a Q&A that I'll keep an eye on, but we will reach out to individually to you based on your questions as well.
Thank you, Ilkay. We do have one question from Janessa, if you would like to answer.
Yes. So the question is about involvement from the on-the-ground people with fire experience. An anecdotal observation is less than 20% of fire data tech people have any experience in on-the-ground fire, and that a lot of ideas, funding, and effort falls flat without context. A working group is a great way to harness enthusiasm, skills that, while effectively moving in the urgently needed direction. We'll check out your paper on this, Janessa, and we'd love to collaborate with you. But overall, I agree with the statement wholeheartedly, because, as you said, we need to ground our innovations with practice. That's why we'd like to create a cross-sector, cross-disciplinary community of practice to actually develop best practices. And we are working with a few institutes and organizations that will actually help us integrate the experience of our practical partners through carefully designed workshops and needs assessment processes as we make progress in this. And please stay tuned. I'll stay there. We'll have a few workshops around this, including the May case study workshop that actually brings together the practical and traditional context with fire and fuel management. I hope this was a satisfactory answer for now. Will there be any funding provided to participate in this effort, working group participation? Unfortunately not. We have limited funding for this effort, and we're hoping community participation will lead to things that are funded by the groups participating in those. But for now, the participation is voluntary. How is this initiative being funded over time? We are starting with a 3-year phase 1, and I think we'll look for ways to sustain it with the community, together with the community into the future. So right now, our hope is in the next couple of years to build a phase 1 that could provide the proof of concept for how something like this could work. Looks like our questions are slowing down. With this, I'll like to close this session, and really, we are very excited to have your participation and work with you over the next year and in the future. Thank you.